Hope you're doing good. Micah back with another video. Back here to talk about this bad boy right here, the MacBook Pro 14-inch, the M1 Pro spec-based MacBook Pro. And I have to tell you, this has been one of the greatest new adventures of mine in the world of tech that I've ever been able to really experience, because I've never had a laptop that I actually did a lot of work on. My old Dell laptop, I think it was Dell HP, I spent like $500 on that back in like 2013, 14. I used that to keep some music, and that was about it. I really didn't do it to I didn't use it to do work on. It was a nice little Core i5 Intel, based laptop, but it was nothing on this kind of level. Fast forward through my tablet experience, using tablets for the last arguably 10 years, you're doing work off of that as well. I did work off of the tablet workflow lifestyle. I did write up scripts or write up presentations. I did keep my life organized. I ran my professional stuff off of a tablet, both in terms of Android and recently, the last 8 months, off of the M2 iPad Pro. So with that being said, why did I switch over to this big boy here in the MacBook Pro? Well, you can really kind of thank Apple for that because of the M4 iPad Pros. As much as I really liked it and I wanted to get it because it was new and I like iPads, that's something I will talk about later as well, I realized that the power gains that I wanted still wouldn't have been sufficient for what I needed to do, which was primarily do a lot of editing off of this here MacBook Pro. And now experiencing that, selling my iPad Pro for the MacBook Pro and getting the M1 Pro spec, I was really trying to get the M1 Max. It was just out of my price range, but I was able to achieve getting the M1 Pro MacBook Pro, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage, so basically the base model, the base M1 Pro chip. And I immediately noticed several gains in performance. So before we get into that, if you guys haven't already, make sure you ignite the like button, subscribe to the channel, notification bell, so I'll free up with some videos so you and I can sit back, check, see what's cracking. And also don't forget, you can support via the Super Things button down there by the like and dislike button. You can Cash App, PayPal, and checking out the channel goes a long way to keep tech fresh and alive on this channel. Now let's get into the video, and the first thing we're going to talk about is really the hardware. And I marvel at this all the time. I do have a dbrand skin coming in for it. I don't know when it's going to show up, but I bought this used from Swapper, so I didn't even buy it brand new. And you're probably going to be hard pressed to find a brand new M1 Pro MacBook in 2024 anyway, because these came out in 2021. But this space gray model is doing a great job already hiding fingerprints. It's just collecting like general debris and dust. But this is, someone kept, the previous owner of this kept this in fantastic shape. Even looking at the charge ports, they barely look used. And they had over 90 charge cycles on it. Now, they clearly didn't use this side that much. I use this side. But the hardware wise, this aluminum is beautiful. It is thin. It weighs, to me, slightly less, if not right on par with the iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard. So weight-wise, I'm not really losing out on anything. If anything, I'm gaining because I'm going from a 12.9-inch iPad Pro to a 14.2-inch MacBook Pro. And so just from a hardware perspective, with that nice size Apple logo, it is very aesthetically pleasing. And from another hardware perspective, the fans are quiet. I've not pushed it hard enough, I guess, for the fans that had to kick in, even with my video editing. Now, I haven't done layers upon layers of 4K yet. I will start doing kind of double layers as well, if you will, like A-roll and B-roll. I'm going to try to bring some of that B-roll back here now that I have a machine that can handle that kind of throughput. And just from a hardware perspective, it is beautiful. I like the fact that you can open with one hand. You can open it with one hand. Now, of course, it's in my hand, so it's a little harder. But you can open this with one hand, no problems. And I really, really love the fact that the display is just as good as my iPad Pros. They basically share the same, like, what is it, Super Retina XDR display or whatever. Terminology aside, This display is magnificent. It's gorgeous. I love this display. I love the keyboard experience, having a full keyboard, having this typing experience. Now, knowing a lot of shortcuts is another part of the journey when it comes to the hardware, because you can operate macOS in so many different ways. But this trackpad assists with that, and I've arguably not really had to use my mouse like that, because being able to operate with shortcuts and the trackpad have been really a joy to use, where I haven't even really needed to use my mouse. So from a hardware perspective, Apple is doing their thing with the MacBooks, and I know that the M3s are also really nice as well. Something that I almost, again, was close to getting as well. I would have needed a bigger payoff, but definitely look for me upgrading this within the next year or so, just because I know what I need in terms of RAM and SSD space, or SSD storage, if you will. But again, from a hardware perspective, it's a marvel what Apple has been able to achieve in this size package. Software wise, again, learning curve, because macOS is different. And again, as was referenced before, the amount of shortcuts that you have to do with this laptop is crazy. Okay, so putting in my lap, I can go one hand as long as it doesn't slide off my lap. But the amount of shortcuts. So the beautiful thing I like is you have Touch ID on here still. Now, the interesting thing is, even though the cameras are decent, the webcam is 1080p, you would think going into 2020 plus, so 2020, 2021 and up, we would finally get Face ID on here, but we still haven't got Face ID on the MacBooks, and that's what's very confusing, because we have that notch space up there. Why not incorporate or integrate Face ID along with Touch ID to give us additional levels of biometric security and bypass authentication, so that way we can log into our apps a lot easier, or log into specific websites or functionality a lot easier. That's something I wonder what's holding them back from adding that to the MacBook. Software wise, I've been learning, watching tons of videos on apps to use, shortcut keys, knowing how to screenshot, knowing how to task switch, knowing how to operate Finder, because Finder is also different on here as well. The funny thing is, I actually didn't have a problem with iPad's file folder from the file folder versus Finder perspective. Now that I've got to deal with Finder, if anything, you can really set them up very similar. You can set iPad files app up very similar to Finder without really missing too much. Yes, there's a little tweaks here and there that you don't have access to, but overall, I didn't have a problem with iPad's files app from that perspective. I did have a problem with it in comparison to Samsung's files app. Samsung's files app is right. macOS brings some of that back, if you will, because now it's much more computer based, because it is a computer. And Finder is actually pretty good. I've been able to watch some videos and learn how to kind of tweak the presentation of Finder, so that way it's a lot easier for me to navigate and see things and just utilize the space, because that's something that I have honestly probably had the hardest trouble transitioning into, is capitalizing on the space of a desktop as opposed to an iPad or a tablet, because I'm so used to tablet life, tablet orientation, that now having more freedom, I'm trying to figure out how to really work that freedom with a laptop. And there really is a difference, because of the amount of information you can see now, the amount of screen real estate you can utilize, and have multiple apps open all over the place. You kind of sort of can with iPadOS and Stage Manager, having a couple windows open floating above each other, but because it's a slightly smaller space and you have Stage Manager there on the side, it does take up some of that screen real estate to really kind of operate between the two. So being able to use a Mac OS has been an eye-opening experience for sure. And I like the fact that you can hide the taskbar. Now, there are moments like when I don't have anything going on, where I would like some kind of machine learning or AI, or just an option to have the taskbar pop up when it's really clean like this, and just go away when I'm actually working on stuff. Case in point, you can have, so if I can show you guys here real quick. So I have a couple windows open. This one is my DaVinci window, I believe. So if I come down here and I come and open DaVinci, it's gonna pop up here, right? Now, this is where I would like the taskbar to go away. right? And it goes away because I have it automatically hidden. But if I switch, and it doesn't show on Safari, at least my model. But now here, this is where I would like the taskbar to actually show. So if I have full screen apps, I would like the full screen app to take over and the taskbar to hide itself. But then when it's clean or I'm not using a full screen based window, then the taskbar would reveal itself. I hope that we get that additional option when it comes to macOS for the MacBook experience. But aside from that, software has been very, very fun. And this, again, is one of those differences that I found, which, again, I'm glad I was able to make that switch, because full desktop apps on an iPad still aren't full desktop until you experience the desktop version. And that's referencing back to DaVinci Resolve, because apps in general, including Finder, they all have menu bar settings on macOS, something that I definitely appreciate, because that's where you get the full level of preference customization for each individual app. Whereas on an iPad, if it's not hidden in settings within the settings app on the iPad, you really can't do that much tweaking of settings for individual apps. Case in point, DaVinci. There's a lot of different things that I can change and or prefer when it comes to caching files or clips, proxy clips and data and stuff like that, which you kind of can do to some degree on the iPad, but being able to customize it in a way that is usable is way more better on Mac OS. And even being able to assign the amount of RAM/storage or whatever you would like DaVinci to be able to use in order to basically index your information, your data, so that way it makes it that much easier to edit footage and effects and stuff like that. You can do that with Mac OS, but on the iPad it's either not quite there yet, or I hadn't really quite found the settings. Plus, the limitation is the software limiting the amount of RAM that apps can actually utilize. And so that, to me, caps DaVinci on the iPad in a way where it does not on the Mac OS. And I've noticed my workflow immediately speed up with the M1 Pro chip because of the performance gains, but also being able to tweak DaVinci where it flows so much more smoothly, being able to layer effects and transitions on one another, and this being able to handle that much more comfortably than my iPad Pro experience. So again, from a software perspective, with those shortcuts to operate within the software itself, so much easier on Mac OS than it is iPadOS. And it actually makes me curious now, if I had a MacBook with a Magic Keyboard to experiment, can I use some of these keyboard shortcuts or short keys or whatever you want to call them with the iPad and the Magic Keyboard the same way I can on the Mac OS? That's something I will not be able to experiment with for some time because I don't have an iPad. And like I said, we're going to get to that in a second. Battery life, phenomenally similar. If I use the iPad and edit footage and then turn around and use it for media consumption, I'll have to charge it within that day, which is fair. That's very much so fine. The same thing is true of the laptop. I get tremendous battery life out of this, similar to my iPad, where like if I don't edit stuff and I might just peruse on here, play around, tweak, experiment, download a couple little apps that I like that I can use in the menu bar, stuff like that. Very small stuff, right? If I don't edit anything and I just do streaming, like if I just watch for entertainment purposes, recreational stuff, and do those little small things, this will last throughout the day and I won't have to charge it to the next day. I might blow through half the battery. So I still get great battery life on here where I charge this every other day. That will go a long way towards the overall battery health. So when I turn around and sell this, there will still be great value within this laptop here because of how I charge it and how I use it. Yes, I may use it to edit stuff, but the battery life will not be affected in that way because I also don't leave it on the charger. I don't do that. I take it off, I use it. When I need to charge it, I plug it back in. As soon as it's charged, I plug it back off. And that's one of the other hardware aspects that I like in terms of battery life, is the fact that at least the cable you get with Apple does give you a battery light indicator. Orange is for charging, green, charge complete. So battery life, But as I said about the tablet, I don't have one. I miss using a tablet, and I think this is probably still part of the transition period that I'm going through when it comes to this iPad versus kind of MacBook life that I have now transitioned into is finding use cases for my MacBook when I'm done working on it. And it's not the same as an iPad, right? Like, because this is a one complete package, you cannot detach the keyboard from it and just watch the screen. This is a full package you have to carry around or have stationed somewhere when you're using it. So let's say I'm done working and I want to watch some content while I'm playing a video game or something like that. It's a lot easier to set up the iPad because I can just take the keyboard off of it, put the folio case on it, and it's right there in what I would consider a better viewing angle because I can have it closer to me. Whereas the MacBook, I can't do that. The MacBook has to stay attached to the keyboard, stay attached to basically a little table of mine that I have to take with me, that I do with my iPad anyway, but this just takes up so much more space. It's raining. I was hearing sounds. I was like, wait, it's raining. So, yes, the portability aspect is what I'm missing about the iPad, and the fact that the iPad is just very easy to use, or the tablet is very easy to use and function outside of work tasks. And the fact that I could work and do, entertainment, leisure-based activity with the iPad all in one, that's one of the things I'm sort of missing. And that's why I think my next iPad is not even going to be the Air. It's going to be an iPad mini probably, because I find the mini to be a perfect sweet spot for leisure-based activities that I will barely do any. I might look at emails at most, but I'm not doing no work activities on the iPad mini. That is to read articles, play games. I may be more interested in playing games and watching media on it. Calm me down from having the MacBook, because when I have the MacBook, sometimes I'm just trying to touch it just to do something with it. And when it comes to the leisure-based stuff, it's a little bit more, I don't want to say difficult, but just a little bit more to it, just because the laptop is a bigger package overall than the iPad. And so that's one of the things I'm adjusting to now that I am full MacBook life in my life. Those are my thoughts and opinions on the MacBook Pro so far after having it for about 2 weeks, and I will continue to keep coverage on it. I might do a setup video, soon as well, showing you how I have my MacBook set up so far as I've ventured into this land of Mac apps, macOS apps, and desktop apps in general. I do need to download the Sony app to make sure I keep my cameras updated and lenses updated and stuff like that. So I do need to download that onto the MacBook Pro. But I will have those kind of videos coming. I will cover macOS on here as I did iPadOS, and when I get an iPad again, I will start recovering iPadOS again. So unfortunately, yes, there won't be any iPad videos for a little bit. That is my thoughts and opinions so far. Let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think. Are you guys in MacBook Pro territory, MacBook Air territory? What apps can you recommend for the MacBook platform? Comment section is open for discussion. But again, as always, if you guys haven't already, make sure to like button, subscribe channel, the notification. That's all free. That was a video, so you and I can sit back, check, see what's cracking. And don't forget, you can hit that super thanks button down there by the like and dislike button. You can Cash App, PayPal me, and check out the channel with all the other videos that's available to you. These are ways you guys can keep tech fresh and alive on this channel. Jermaine Micah signing out. Till the next video. Wait.